Today we will be talking about radio shows and how they distracted people from everyday life during the Great Depression. Radio started in the late 1890s as navigation for ships out at sea. Between 1923 and 1930, 60% of all American families owned radios.
The first radio station was KDKA. KDKA was commonly used for breaking news because that was the fastest and most efficient way to get important news to the people. KDKA also created the first commercial broadcast, and they were also the first to broadcast the election results of the Harding-Cox race of 1920.
Amos and Andy debuted in 1926 and at the time was called Sam and Henry, but the name had to be changed in 1928 because a different station already owned the rights to the name. The show was about the misadventures of two African-American men who moved from the South to Chicago to find their money. It was 15 minutes long and people stopped what they were doing all over America to listen in, which brought it to become possibly the most popular radio show.
When soap operas were created, they were originally meant for housewives, but they ended up attracting all kinds of people. The name soap opera came from the advertisements that went on during each show that were typically for household cleaning products. The first soap opera aired on Chicago's WGN radio, and it immediately attracted hundreds of thousands of listeners. The shows were extremely dramatic, which distracted the listeners from their own hardships for a while and gave them an escape. Each show was extremely dramatic, and they had distracted listeners from their own hardships during the Great Depression. And each show had ended with cliffhangers to ensure listeners the following night.
The Lone Ranger was listened to by millions of children around the U.S. Each show began with a fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty "Hi-Yo Silver." The show was about one of the most enduring Western heroes. The series became the cornerstone of the Mutual Radio Network.
The Lone Ranger was typically a children's show, and it was listened to by millions of children around America. It was about one of the most enduring Western heroes. At the beginning of each show, the Lone Ranger would say, "A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty Hi-Yo Silver." War of the Worlds was created by Orson Welles, who had intentionally written the script to see how well the idea of emergency radio worked. This show broadcasted on Halloween in 1938 on the Mercury Radio Theater of Air. Orson Welles had said that a meteorite crashed into a New Jersey farm and that they were being attacked by Martians, and he had sounded so convincing that people had to be treated for hysteria and shock.
Some interesting facts to add. Mr. Wilmot, would you please tell the radio audience as much as you remember of this rather unusual visitor that dropped in your backyard? Step closer, please. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Wilmot. I was listening to the radio. Closer, louder, please. Pardon? Louder, please. Yes. I was listening to the radio and kind of drowsy. A professor fellow was talking about Mars, so I was half drunk. Yes, Mr. Wilmot, and then what happened? Well, as I was saying, I was listening to the radio, kind of halfway. Yes, Mr. Wilmot, and then you saw something. Not first off, I heard something. And what did you hear? A hissing sound like this. Kind of like a 4th of July rocket. Yes, then what? I turned my head out the window and would have sworn I was dreaming. Yes? Seen a kind of greenish streak and then bingo. Something smacked the ground. Knocked me clear out of my chair. Well, were you frightened, Mr. Wilmot? Well, I ain't quite sure. I reckon I was kind of riled. Thank you, Mr. Wilmot. Thank you very much. That's quite all right. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard Mr. Wilmot, owner of the farm where this thing has fallen.